geleidelijk aan gaan we ons opmaken voor wat een mooie afsluiting is van een prachtig driejaags DTM weekend. En in het voorprogramma, of in dit geval het naprogramma, vonden we dit jaar een klasse waar we altijd erg blij mee zijn, al jarenlang overigens. Hier het FIA Formula 3 European Championship, FIA natuurlijk, Formula 3 European Championship. En wat maakt dit kampioenschap nou bijzonder? Nou, de belangrijkste reden is dat hier de Formule 1 sterren van de toekomst in rijden. Dat is al jaren zo. Dat was in de tijd van Jos Verstappen al zo. Dat was in de tijd van Max Verstappen zo. Dat is nog helemaal niet zo lang geleden. We zien hem eventjes in beeld. Ik weet niet of u dat op de monitor ook ziet. Een slow motion van onze Max. En dat zal ook de komende jaren wel zo zijn dat de Formule 1 helden van de toekomst hier nu in rondrijden. Hoe wil dat zijn, dat weet je natuurlijk nooit. Hoe snel ze zich bewijzen in dit veld, weet je ook. En hoe snel ze dan kunnen doorgroeien naar de Formule 1, weet je al helemaal niet. Wat wel weten is dat er op zijn minst één topcollege hier dit weekend rondrijdt. Die gaan we vanaf de helft horen van die vandaag. En pole position start Lando.
Hi everyone, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the third race of this weekend from the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. It's race 21 in the 2017 Championship, and as you can see, the cars are set on the grid, resplendent in the sunshine that the Circuit Park Zandvoort has offered us today. As we look at our pole sitter, Mr. Lando Norris then, going from pole position for Carlin Motorsport. Lando Norris then, who has already been on the top step of the podium this weekend. Been on the third step of the podium as well, and he's put himself in the best position because the qualifying and pole position means that he's in the best possible place to convert that P1 to the race win. Good qualifying also from Ferdinand Habsburg. Bear in mind it's the second fastest time in the second quali session that sets the grid for this particular race. And behind Ferdinand Habsburg it is Maximilian Günther, who will be going from P3 on the grid for Prema Power Team. So Maximilian Günther, who my learned friend alongside me, motorsport journalist Leo Gorman, tells me will be in pink overalls come Nürburgring. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Now, P4 goes the way of Guan Yu Zhu, another Prema Power Team driver. Guan Yu Zhu then going from P4 on the grid. Forgive the cooling noise that you can hear from our camera down there alongside the Guan Yu Zhu car. And going from P5 will be Jake Hughes. And there we can see Jake Hughes then, the high-tech GP driver, going, as I said, from P5 on the grid. And it's going to be P7, I think, Lee, before we see Callum Ilott, the British driver, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like Jake Hughes, I should say.
Callum Ilott, who won race 2 earlier on today, he was one of several drivers who was penalised for an infringement in qualifying 2 yesterday when Jehan Deruvala had a bit of an off. He had his time deleted for not slowing down quite enough, or he slowed but maybe not quite enough in the sector. Therefore he is 7th on the grid behind David Beckman. We see Callum Ilott now. Ilott is very much on the outside of the championship standings at the moment.
But took a commanding win in race 2.
It was absolutely faultless, and I think this is one of the issues for Callum when he is in a situation when he can actually turn in a great result. He does so with such absolute perfection. And here's a guy, Pedro Piquet, didn't even make it to the end of lap 1 today. The absolute opposite. He had coming together with teammate Joey Mawson. An incident that both drivers really probably could have avoided if one is to be absolutely fair, but it resulted in Mawson needing to pit stop while Pedro Piquet retired on the spot as we come to 9th starter Ralph Aron in the high-tech machine.
So Ralph Aron then, as you can see in the, as Leah said, the high-tech GP machine, a wave and a thumbs up then from Ralph Aron. Going from that position on the grid, P9. And then we find Harrison Newey going from P10, the Van Amersfoort Racing driver. Harrison Newey then P10 on the grid for this third and final race this weekend, as the cars will head off to the Nürburgring next at between the or on the 9th and 10th of September. There is Joey Mawson, has come into the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Beg your pardon, it's Nikita Mazepin that we're looking at now, the number 99 car. And it's going to be Joey Mawson that's alongside Nikita Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin, of course, another one of those drivers that was in an F1 test at the Hungaroring recently. And there is Joey Mawson, who came into the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, of course, as the ADAC Formula 4 champion. And Joey Mawson there, going from P12 on the grid. And poor qualifying for Joel Eriksson, I was about to say. Yes,
Joel Eriksson, he's on slightly run left side tyres there. Joel Eriksson, they've been battling really for setup issues this weekend. Haven't really, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to nail down and really been able to extract the speed for Joel Eriksson. And it's been disappointing because his teammate, David Beckman, started 4th in race 2. He's starting 6th today. So Motor Park themselves maybe not capitalising as much as they could, but Joel Eriksson, he's really had a couple of unfortunate race weekends. And you got a race like this here at Zandvoort, 13th on the grid. It's going to be incredibly difficult for Joel to really make it up the order. Overtaking here can be quite difficult, and for a chap who was really battling for the championship and in the lead of the championship not that long ago, he's now over a race win behind the lead of the championship and could potentially lose another 25 points here today, as current championship leader Lando Norris will lead the grid away.
Yes. Well, Lando Norris really has cut a swathe through the pack of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship this year, it has to be said. And well, Lando Norris going from pole position, and you certainly wouldn't be betting against Lando Norris converting that P1 start into the P1 result at the end of the race. All 3 races, 33 minutes long plus 1 lap, and that also applies to this race, the final race, as a final handshake of good luck is wished from the Carlin team. There is Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher is down there, P15 on the grid for the Bremer Power Team driver that drives car number 25, Mick Schumacher.
And another aspect of Daruvala's crash yesterday in Quali 2 is it actually really did get in the way of a lot of drivers setting benchmark laps for race 2. And theoretically, had it been green all the way through to the end of that session, we may have actually seen faster qualifying times that have set the grid today, because Daruvala's crash came relatively late on. It was in the second half of the session. So when it did go green again, there was very little time for everyone else to go and set faster laps.
Fair point. Okay, the cars will be released on their formation lap shortly, and then the 33 minutes plus 1 lap race will get underway. So, as I said, the cars released now, exactly bang on time. Lando Norris then, and we'll bring in the grid in full in just a moment's time. A reminder to you, it is race 21 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship for 2017. And we're at the circuit park at Zandvoort, this old school challenging circuit with no acres of tarmac runoff area. It is merely grass and gravel traps that can very much catch you out and bite you on the bottom should you choose, or should you not choose, but be forced to leave the racing surface. And it can really, really cost you here. We have 4 left-handers, 9 right-handers, 13 turns in total of this 4.3 kilometre circuit. And as promised, here's the grid in full for you. Lando Norris and Ferdinand Habsburg with Maximilian Gunther and Guan Yu Zhu. Then it's Jake Hughes, David Beckman, Callum Eilert, Pedro Piquet, Ralph Aron and Harrison Newey rounding out the first 5 rows. Then it's Nikita Mazepin, Joey Mawson, Joel Eriksson, Jihan Daruvala, Mick Schumacher, Tadazuki, Makino, before we find Andres and Sato and Vadyanathan. Rounding out the completed grid as the cars will try and generate some temperature into those tyres, Lee.
And you need a good start in this race, because as we mentioned a few moments ago, it's very difficult to overtake here at Zandvoort. And if you get a poor start, it's going to be almost impossible to be able to make that back again. So the guys are going to be extra tense coming onto the start-finish grid for the actual start of this race in a few moments' time.
Sure. Okay, then bathed, as you can see, in sunshine and the cool North Sea that is just behind us. There is the track layout, and there is René Rossin to the very back of that picture from Prema Power Team looking on. And Lando Norris then, Carlin Motorsport driver, of course, and Carlin really have enjoyed as much as Lando Norris almost the fruits of his success, because it's also very, very good for the team, isn't it?
It has indeed, and Carlin really stepped up this year. They got a very, very good driver in Lando, and you know, in Max here at Prema, and Joel then in Motor Park, and Callum also in a Prema Power Team. I think we've had quite a fantastic little championship so far, and we got another. This will be the 10th last race of the year, so I think this is going to go right down to the wire. But Gunther, I think, needs to make a good start from P3 on the grid to maybe challenge Lando Norris for the win here today.
So Motor Park, Prema Power Team, Van Amersfoort, High Tech, GP, Carlin. It's a great lineup of teams as well as a great lineup of drivers. And it is the third and final race of this weekend now for Lando Norris and Ferdinand Habsburg. Those are the ones that have to sit on the grid the longest, awaiting the back of the grid to come into their grid positions, their grid boxes. Once they are in there, then, only then, can the start sequence start. There is the green flag from the marshal at the rear of the pack. He's happy that everyone's in their grid box. There's Guan Yu Zhu, and there's 4 lights, there's 5 lights when the lights are out. Let's go racing. Ferdinand Habsburg, and trying to make a move down the middle already is Pedro Piquet, and Ferdinand Habsburg, Maximilian Gunther and Guan Yu Zhu almost side by side there as Maximilian Gunther goes through and just ahead of that Guan Yu Zhu car, but Guan Yu Zhu is pushing hard. Ferdinand Habsburg, Lando Norris doing exactly what he needs to do. He's escaping up the road. Mick Schumacher, another one, also trying to make up places right at the very start of this race. The first sequence of turns 1, 2 and 3 done and dusted. They'll head downhill now towards the back of the circuit. Jihan Daruvala then in car number 27 that you could see there just moments.
And that is a bit of a difficult start for David Beckman, who was 6th on the grid and has lost so much. I think he's dropped down to 13th place or so. Harry Newey and Ralph Aaron almost close to come to banging wheels as they exited turn 1 going into the long and winding turn 2. But meanwhile, it's Lando Norris out front. Ferdinand Habsburg has really made strides recently. Won a race. He won race 2 at Spa at the end of last month. And he's pulled some very good results together, and has scored a lot of points this weekend as well.
Earlier on I mentioned Pedro Piquet. We just saw Pedro Piquet going through the chicane there as all the cars make their way through that chicane, turns 10 and 11, the Audi S. As they snake their way now into the final sequence of turns, and there is Mick Schumacher in the number 25 car. So as they cross the timing line and break the beam for the first time of asking in this 33-lap race, it's Lando Norris that's leading. I think Guan Yu Zhu is under some pressure from Callum Eilert here.
And we have Ralph Farron under pressure. No, sorry, that's Jake Hughes under pressure from Pedro Piquet as they just edges down the inside, and that's over 6th and 7th place. And you're right, Callum Eilert under the rear wing of Guan Yu Zhu, 0.3 of a second, but it was not enough to allow the Briton to make a move. Eilert, though, has taken 2 places on that first lap, one of which was David Beckman, who fell down the order. So decent start for Callum Eilert, but he wants to take more positions than that as the race goes into its final half hour.
And it becomes ever more difficult, doesn't it? Because overtaking here, very, very difficult. Callum Eilert then on the back of Guan Yu Zhu, but Lando Norris and Ferdinand Habsburg have broken away from Maximilian Gunther once again, and there you can see the top 3. They've all got car lengths between them. The closest in that little battle is between P4 and P5, which is Guan Yu Zhu and Callum Eilert, before we find Jake Hughes ahead of Pedro Piquet. Then it's Harrison Newey, Ralph Farron and Nikita Mazepin rounding out the top 10 at the moment.
And yes, there's a bit of a gap already for Lando Norris as he streaks ahead of Ferdinand Habsburg. But it's a good job Oh, no, really right in the curb. I think that was Mick Schumacher, or sorry, no, it was Joel Eriksson. It was Joel Eriksson actually behind Mick Schumacher. Trying to make a move there, not going to quite come off. That's actually probably going to lead to an accident more than anything else. I think Eriksson's actually lost a spot to Beckman while he does so. Eriksson desperate to make up positions, as he said in the pre-race, he's going to lose a lot of points this weekend. And
he's gone from P13 to P14 now with that botched attempt over the chicane. Bit of a lock up there, and there is Joel Eriksson. And Joel Eriksson now, all of a sudden, is under a threat potentially from Jihan Daravala.
Eriksson does need to make positions, but he also needs to finish. I mean, that was an overtaking manoeuvre that really probably wasn't on, born more of desperation and actual racing reality, as it were. But he's down in 14th place at the moment, and he'll still be looking to challenge Beckman to make a move again as this race goes on.
And the problem is for Joel Eriksson, down in 14th place, what does that mean? It means 0 points.
Absolutely no score whatsoever, while Norris leading the race would score 25. Meanwhile, you got JQ still under pressure from the Van Amersfoort driver of Pedro Piquet. This is for 6th, 7th, and just behind them Harry Newey, and only just behind them is the other high-tech of Ralph Ferron. So you get a Van Amersfoort high-tech battle going on for 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th, and Nikita Mazepin 10th place is another, and that's actually Aaron with Mazepan. Yeah, Aaron is keeping Mazepan at bay on the back end of the circuit as they go into the final tour of corners. That's Ari Lyondike corner.
Well, Nikita Mazepin at the moment is occupying the final points-paying position. Lando Norris leading by 1.6 seconds over Ferdinand Habsburg. Then it's Maximilian Günther. And Guan Yu Zhu is all over the back of Maximilian Günther now.
Zhu looking very feisty as we have Mazepan, and I think he's actually got by Ralph Aaron. Has he? No, Aaron holds him off.
Mazepin is looking lively, isn't he? And he's trying to get past the number 7 car of Ralph Ferron here.
And it's dropping Aaron a long way behind the 9th place, or 8th place, Harry Newey. No, Adrian Newey's not racing in this event today. It is his son, Harry, actually. As the...
There's Callum Eilert.
Callum Eilert back onto the rear of Guan Yu Zhu. Zhu is now dropped a little bit behind Maxi Günther as this race almost slips between the 3 Prema Power Team guys, all looking to come out on top.
So Lando Norris then with a comfortable margin in the early stages of this race, leading the race, but further back, lots of battles going on in this FIA Formula 3 European Championship race. 3 of 3 across this weekend here at the Circuit Park Zandvoort, where overtaking is notoriously difficult. Newly resurfaced this circuit. There is Callum Eilert then, and Guan Yu Zhu is ahead of him. Callum Eilert, of course, took a very commanding win in race number 2. Guan Yu Zhu and Callum Eilert both, of course, for the same team. There's Jake Hughes leading the number 5 car of Pedro Piquet. Then it's Harrison Newey, and then you can see as they come through, there is the number 96 car of Joey Mawson just out of the points. So it's Norris, Habsburg, Günther, Zhu, then it's Eilert, Hughes, Piquet, and Harrison Newey. And just taking a look at the inside of Jake Hughes there. And meantime, the number 7 and number 99 car of Nikita Mazepin and Ralph Ferron continue to battle. But for the moment, Ralph Ferron is able to show Nikita Mazepin a clean pair of heels and say, you ain't coming through, friend.
Mazepin is really looking around the outside as much as possible, but I think Jake Hughes is carrying enough pace to the inside, even though it's a tighter line, and theoretically he's scrubbing off some speed by being on such a tight line on a long winding corner. He's actually just doing enough to keep Mazepin at bay. They're not exactly losing a huge amount of time to the group up front, because Hughes is so busy fighting off Piquet that those two aren't actually escaping. So we have Hughes 6th place, Piquet 7th place just behind, then Harry Newey 4/10 behind Piquet, then it's Aaron, and then Mazepin, and then Mawson, then Schumacher down in 12th place, and then you've Beckman, and it goes right down to the very last position of the grid. It's a big train of cars, and I'm wondering maybe if Hughes is probably on an older set of tyres, and we see a move.
That's Joel Eriksson trying to find a way past David Beckman.
And Beckman taking the inside line going into the chicane. It's not an optimum line, but it keeps Ericsson at bay, but will actually make Beckman slightly slower on the exit of the chicane and maybe lose a little bit of pace coming through the final corner. We'll see now if Ericsson can get an advantage from this.
Lando Norris then extends his lead at the front of the pack up to 3.3 seconds. Then it's Habsburg, then it's Gunter, then it's Zhu. So now trying to just look at the inside. There was the number 99 car of Nikita Mazepin. Nothing doing there as he's trying to wrestle away that position held by Ralph Aron at the moment. 25 minutes of the race remaining in this Formula 3 race here at the Circuit Park Zandvoort. There's Jake Hughes, who's not being able to break away from Piquet, Newey and Aron and the Mazepin battle. It's kind of two halves of, you've got the Norris, Habsburg, Gunter and Zhu and Eilert cars have all broken away. The top 5 positions have broken away from Jake Hughes. There is the number 25 car of Mick Schumacher, currently running down there in P12. Ahead of him is former mate in ADAC Formula 4. That's Joey Mawson. So we'll find if Mick Schumacher can find a way past the Joey Mawson car. So Mick Schumacher currently is P12. Both Schumacher and Mawson, of course, are rookies, and so too is our race leader, Lando Norris. And through the turns 10 and 11, the chicane they go to make their way into the Arie Luyendyk turn now. And we'll see if Lando Norris extends his margin at the front by some tenths to increase. Indeed he does. Some 3 tenths he adds to his dominant performance out front thus far. 3.6 second margin he's got over Habsburg. And then Maximilian Gunter. And again, look at car number 7 there, just making sure that the inside line is protected. That's Ralph Aron and Nikita Mazepin really battling hard here. And what it's doing, it's allowing the number 96 car of Joey Mawson and also that car of Mick Schumacher to try and be involved in that battle as well. But with overtaking so notoriously difficult here, nobody, whatever Nikita Mazepin tries to do, he cannot get past.
Drive-through penalty for Vajanathan, incorrect grid position. And that doesn't mean he's actually pulled into the wrong grid slot on the grid, but rather he's probably gone too far forward or maybe too far to the left or right of his grid. It's very exact, the positions that they need to take, and he's got it wrong this time. So he was running last anyway, but now he's even further behind the pack. As we see, second place man Ferdinand Habsburg come under pressure from Maxi Gunther. Gunther, who's actually reeled Habsburg in the last few moments, and Habsburg, he's really going to be feeling the pressure. The Carlin man running P2, as we see in the pack now. It's Jake Hughes. He's still got a train of cars behind him.
It's a huge train of cars, isn't it? So you've got Jake Hughes, then you've got Pedro Piquet, Harrison Newey, Ralph Aron, Nikita Mazepin, Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher all involved in that. There is Mick Schumacher, there is David Beckman, and David Beckman currently running in P13, which means Joel Eriksson is P14. So across the timing line they come once again, and again Lando Norris is able to extend his margin a little bit, and now
it's Ralph Aron on Harry Newey. Aron really close up to the back of Newey in that last lap, has actually dropped Mazepin somewhat, and now the Estonian's going to try very, very, very hard to get through the Englishman. This is of course for 8th and 9th positions in this race.
So then Harrison Newey is defending currently from Ralph Aron then in the number 7 car. Harrison Newey there in the number 17 machine. Nikita Mazepin, of course, will be hoping that these two do fight together, because all of a sudden what it means is that perhaps and potentially Ralph Aron, in trying to overtake Harrison Newey, makes himself weak and makes himself vulnerable to the attack of Nikita Mazepin. And Nikita has been trying so hard after the early laps in this race to try and find a way past that number 7 car, but thus far has been unable to do so. There is Lando Norris, a country mile up the road from Ferdinand Habsburg, who's P2. Maximilian Gunter just slowly getting a little bit closer to Ferdinand Habsburg, but we know that Ferdinand Habsburg is a really difficult guy to get past.
Absolutely, he defends, and you can see Beckman's very, very, very slow start from 6th on the grid, fell right down the order. It's almost as if it took an age for him to get the car going while everyone streaked past him, which is pretty much exactly what happened. Gunther at the start. Actually, now you saw a bit of tyre locking there. That was actually a small little clatter between Pedro Piquet and it was Ralph Aron.
A very good move around the outside from Callum Eilert, wasn't it?
Absolutely. That was investigated, by the way, the incident between Piquet and Aron. It was found to be there was no no action needed on this instance, and Beckman really dropping down the grid there. Now, we saw a few moments ago Ralph Aaron under pressure, pressuring Adrian Newey for 8th and 9th place. This actually worked out a little bit for Pedro Piquet, because now he's not under pressure from Harry Newey behind, and it allows him to focus his efforts on trying to pass Jake Hughes without actually having to look in his mirrors for any potential moves that Harry Newey might make.
Lando Norris then, 4.2 seconds to the good over Ferdinand Habsburg and Maximilian Günther. And, the top 5 then really have broken away from Jake Hughes and Pedro Piquet, Harry Newey, Ralph Aron, Nikita Mazepin, Joey Mawson, Mick Schumacher, David Beckman, Joel Eriksson, Jihan Daruvala, and there is that huge train of cars, as you can see. And Daruvala is now the last one in that real pack of cars, to be fair. And there is Mick Schumacher, currently, as I say, running in P12, and he's third best rookie at the moment, because Joey Mawson is ahead of him, and of course Lando Norris, also a rookie, bear in mind, is leading this race. We've got just under 20 minutes plus 1 lap of the race remaining. And there is Joel Eriksson, who has had a torrid weekend, it has to be said, in terms of points scoring. And here we go as Nikita Mazepin lines up the number 7 car once again. He gets right alongside it. They bang wheels a little bit, but number 7 has done enough. Ralph Aron once again denies Nikita Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin, that was his best opportunity to do it. But coming out of turn number 1, the number 7 car of Ralph Aron had just enough to be able to deny Nikita Mazepin.
I can't help but wonder maybe if Mazepin is allowing Ralph Aaron to actually bully him a little bit going through that corner, because Mazepin was actually ahead on the entry into the corner, and yes, it's on the outside.
Here it is. Here it is again now. So Mazepin right on the outside, and he's ahead, but he's not ahead enough.
It's not. He actually looks like he gets out of it. And that's he needs to keep his foot in. He needs to actually keep pressurising Ralph Aaron if he actually wants to make that move work, not get out of it while he's 1/3 of the way through the corner.
Well, of course, it's easy for us to sit here and say that. We're not in the car trying to do it, are we? I don't know whether we'd make as good a job of it as Mazepin is trying to do, but it's providing great entertainment for us, that's for sure. So as the train of cars that come past us and go through the Audi S, the chicane here at the Zandvoort circuit, all of them being led by Jake Hughes. Now, what surprises me a little bit here is the fact that Jake Hughes has got completely clear air ahead of him, but he's not able to break away from this pack of cars that you can see rounding the final turn now. Look at them. There's 7, 8, 9 cars involved in this as they all head down into turn number 1. And in fairness, Pedro Piquet has not been able to really push Jake Hughes. He looks comfortable in that position in P6, but just not able to break away from the pack. He's taking the pack with him almost. I'm
guessing Hughes has got to be on all tyres, either on one side or all 4, maybe on all tyres, because his pace, that's not reflective. The lap times he's setting is not reflective of his actual pace. And at some stage over this weekend, a lot of drivers will use slightly aged tyres because there is a limit on the amount of tyres you can use over an FIA European Formula 3 weekend. So some of the sets, or maybe half a set that you use in practice or qualifying, you put on in race 2 or maybe race 3. And it actually makes sense, because Jake Hughes started second for race 2 earlier on today. He finished second, so you got to balance it. If you got a first set of tyres, do you use them for the race in which you finished P2 or start P2 and could win, or do you use them for the race where you start P7 and could get points?
There's arguments for and against whatever strategy you choose, but there is the number 34 car of Jake Hughes. I just wondered whether one of the end plates looks a little bit loose on the front nose of that. We'll keep an eye on that for you in car number 34. Lando Norris leading and extending his lead still further. It's now up to some 5.3 seconds over Ferdinand Habsburg, and Maximilian Günther is in P3 with Guan Yu Zhu. Oh, and in is Callum Eilert.
This is interesting as we see Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher, and it's Aaron and Mazepin again. Will Mazepin keep his foot in it this time? No, Aaron keeps it going, but Schumacher also stays behind Joey Mawson as they come round.
No, he doesn't. He's right alongside him.
Front wing.
The new front wing for Callum Eilert then.
I have not seen that on screen, so maybe if he wasn't exactly back. I wouldn't have thought he was so close to Guan Yu Zhu to maybe damage it, or maybe he went off somewhere. Not entirely sure because we didn't see it on screen.
So here comes Callum Eilert rejoining the race then in the number 53 car with a new front wing on. So he was at points, he was really pressuring Guan Yu Zhu, but of course we've been watching the other battle that's going on here. That's where our cameras have been focused. So whether he did make contact with the back end of the Guan Yu Zhu car, we know not. Perhaps we will get a replay of that.
One thing that actually caught me, you mentioned a few moments ago, as you see the race leader Lando Norris on car, it looked as if maybe the end plates of Hughes's front wing, maybe is potentially some damage, or
Just
looks
on
like
the right-hand side. I just thought it looked a bit loose, but
it's actually. I thought the same thing at Silverstone, and apparently it may be a little trickle of damage, but apparently it is something to do. It's like an optical illusion of the new front wings, because the actual end plates of the front wings kind of angle inwards.
Yeah.
So when they're under extreme forces, it does look as if they're a bit damaged when it's actually just the odd angle you're looking at.
okay. Right, there is the order on screen for you, and 5.5 seconds is Lando Norris's margin, as once again Mick Schumacher just looks on the outside of Joey Mawson, and Jake Hughes then still leading this pack of cars, and Mick Schumacher is as close to Joey Mawson as he has been, but Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher, interestingly, very, very good buddies when they're outside of the cockpit of the car. But, of course, when they're racing, it's all very, very different as the cars stream through this. It's a brilliant roller coaster section of this circuit park, Zandvoort. And there is Schumacher.
I actually kind of see what you're on about now with regards to the, but I don't think it's the end plate. I think that might actually be the end plane. I think it might be something that's actually weakened on the inside of the wing that's actually causing additional vibrations on the outside of the. It makes it look as if the end plate is broken, but it's actually not. I think it's actually just something maybe dented on the inside.
The reason I picked up on it, and the reason I mentioned it, is because, as you had said just a few moments ago, Jake Hughes' pace is not representative, knowing what we can, knowing what we do, of what he can deliver. Now, in fairness, it could be that he's on used tyres. We don't know the answer to that, and therefore that might be the reason why he's not showing the pace and breaking away from that pack. But equally, if there's something wrong just at the front end of the car, which could cause just a little bit of an issue, whether that is slowing as well.
Possibly, and Hughes' pace it's not bad. We're not talking he's several seconds. He's actually only in and around half a second to 0.7 of a second, losing. And we're going down further than the grid. Is another attempt to overtake, and I do believe that is Ericsson trying on Beckman again. Doesn't quite work. Beckman holds the defensive line down the inside. Ericsson cannot make it work, but he's still on his rear wing. He's going for this 12th place. He needs to get past Beckman if he wants to even try and get a single point in this race, but he's not worked out this time.
And he's running out of time to be able to do it, isn't he? Under 13 minutes left to run. Under 13 minutes left to run. The reason I mentioned it about the Jake Hughes is that the top four have broken away by an incredible margin. There is Jake Hughes. There is the Pedro Piquet car.
And Ericsson, on the back of not being able to get Beckman, has actually had to go defensively against Daruvala on the back end of that circuit. So when he's not actually able to make the move on Beckman ahead, he then actually almost go into a defensive position because he puts his car on the wrong line. For all intents and purposes, if you're trying to overtake someone, you actually almost have to get offline. It might make the overtake work, but if it doesn't work, you're then on the wrong line.
You're vulnerable, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
You're vulnerable, you're right. One man that isn't vulnerable is Lando Norris. Look at this as he crosses the timing line. It's 1/10 under 6 seconds worth of margin he's got over Ferdinand Habsburg. Callum Eilert, incidentally, following the front nose change, has returned in P19. Plumb last. That's going to hurt. So Norris then 5.9 seconds ahead of Habsburg. Then it's Gunter Zhu, Hughes, Piquet, Newey, and again Nikita Mazepin tries around the outside of Ralph Aron. It's 5, 6, maybe even 7 times he's tried to do that. And the thing is now, probably the first time is the time he needed to make it work. But now Ralph Aron is completely aware of where Nikita Mazepin is going to have a go. Though I have to say it's one of the few places where you can try. Maybe going into the chicane as we get super slow-mo replay of our race leader here, Lando Norris, in the number 31 car, engineered by the Carlin Motorsport team. It looks great out there, and He's doing a great job, some 6 seconds ahead of the rest of the pack.
It just doesn't work. If you're going to make a move, get it done. But don't keep repeating that same move over and over and over and over again. Because, you know, what these racing drivers do is they're constantly learning. They're constantly picking up what other drivers are doing. So they will know effectively what move they're going to make. So you need to, if it's not working around the outside, have a look down the inside or try and make the move that way. But doing the same thing every single lap, it's going to keep the same results over and over. And Hughes knows now where to place his car every single lap.
I agree with you, but in fairness, Ralph Aron does know. But where else can Nikita Mazepin really have a go if that inside line is not available to him? Because Ralph Aron is so stoic in his defence of making sure that inside line, he's got to try and get a slingshot around the outside, and he has tried. Okay, here comes Joey Mawson, heavily defending against Mick Schumacher. They're side by side again. Mawson has got the inside line. Here comes Schumacher now, but Mawson then, he was, and that was almost a repeat, wasn't it, of what Mazepin has been trying to do on Aron, and it just hasn't worked. You cannot get the momentum around the outside here.
But the driver in front, at some point, they actually have to get back onto the racing line to actually make the corner.
Yes.
So, do you go down the inside and try and hold it there while they actually get back on the racing line?
But to go down the inside, you've got to have the gap, haven't you? You know, it's got to be wide enough for you to go into.
Absolutely. But if the driver makes an intentional move to try and get back onto the racing line to make the corner, it may open up a gap. But it's a bit
Joel Eriksson just taking a look at the inside of the Beckman car, but Joel Eriksson was not able to make that work. We're into the final 10 minutes of this race now, and
he's gone off.
Oh, he has. This could make him weak against Gian Daravala. Daravala trying to find a way past the Joel Eriksson car now. Daravala into the chicane. Is he going to be able to do it? No, he's not. So that was a big save from Joel Eriksson, to be fair.
And not necessarily the nicest move in the world to just cut across the track like that.
Yeah, but he's protecting his position, though. His position, of course, P13 is... It's just futile. It's going to give him nothing, is it? Okay, now Nikita Mazepin did try and go for the inside, you see, but Ralph Aron immediately blocked it. Now Nikita Mazepin again, he gets half the car ahead of the number 7 car, Ralph Aron. They bang wheels, and he's just not able to do it. So, and that reinforces what I was saying. You've got to have the gap for you to be able to try and get down the inside. And to be fair to Ralph Aron, he's not allowed him that opportunity.
Well, over there, this is a shot of Eriksson going off. And this is what I'm talking about, a bit cheeky, where you see Eriksson, he's just, that's actually a very aggressive move, clean across the track. And the stewards aren't looking at it at this point, but I tell you what, Aron got away with that.
Yeah,
and he actually got away with it because I think Mazepin himself was slightly out of control because he started actually steering left slightly. As we see Eriksson down in...
He must be so frustrated. It has been a torrid weekend for Joel Eriksson, and he's languishing down there in P13, almost having lost a place to Gian Daravala, were it not for his very, very sharp movement to try and block Daravala from coming through. There's Ferdinand Habsburg that's running P2, Maximilian Günther. Now, I'm just wondering whether Guan Yu Zhu is getting a little bit closer to... Maximilian Günther. The margin between them is 1.2 seconds. We'll keep an eye on that for you because there is Maximilian Günther currently running P3. Podium place for him will be valuable points, and every point is needed at the moment. And so Maximilian Günther then with the new BWT sponsorship from this weekend, running that pink coloured car now across the Prema Power machine.
I think we're going to see an error from Günther because he dropped over a second on the final sector alone on that lap. Yeah, there we go.
Sideways, isn't he?
He lost over a second doing that.
Well, that reveals why Guan Yu Zhu was able to get back on terms with Maximilian Günther then. And here in replay was Nikita Mazepin then all the way around the outside. Both of them at one point are sideways, aren't they?
Hey, this has actually just happened. This is a different incident altogether.
It is, and as Mazepin lost out there.
We'll see in a moment. Mawson was right there. Yeah, Mawson has taken Mazepin, actually, so that's actually cost the high-tech driver.
There's Lando Norris then. He's up the road. Here is P2, Ferdinand Habsburg. P3 is Maximilian Günther, who just made that momentary mistake that allowed Guan Yu Zhu to get a little bit closer to him. So the cars now coming through the chicane. And, well, there's Jihan Daruvala all over the back of Beckman. I think that Ericsson has got past Beckman.
No, he's not. He's not there. Oh, yes, I think he has.
Ericsson has got past him.
So there's Mawson, there's Mazepin, there's Schumacher. And I think, yeah, you may be right. I think that's Ericsson's yellow helmet just behind Schumacher there. So we may... it's Pedro Piquet on JQs around the outside. The Van Amersfoort man against the high-tech racer doesn't make it happen there.
That was a very brave move, wasn't it? He was going to go for that, and he did go for that as well.
And Harry Newey just behind them, waiting to pounce should there be an incident between those two drivers. Mawson did actually pass Mazepin in the end for 9th place. Ericsson is up to 12th, having passed Beckman. Beckman lost 1.5 seconds in the middle sector of the last lap, so maybe a mistake somewhere along the line, but it means Ericsson's 12th, still not going to score points.
Under investigation or information, there's contact between the number 99 and number 7 car.
That's the collision we saw in turn 1 between Mazepin and Aaron, which ended up with Mazepin losing the position to Mawson.
So, with under 5 minutes remaining plus 1 lap here, and that contact is being noted. That information at 17:22, we're now at 17:23, so just a minute ago that was put up on the screen. So the cars coming through then is, there is Mick Schumacher, who's P11, just 1 place away from being in the points. Ahead of him now is Nikita Mazepin. And look, this train of cars has remained a train throughout this race, hasn't it? Still being led by Jake Hughes. There was a brilliant effort by Pedro Piquet to go all the way around the outside of him just a few moments ago, but he wasn't able to make it happen. But it was a brave move indeed, and Jake Hughes for the moment is able to breathe a sigh of relief, and Harrison Newey is there bolted into P7, it would appear, with Pedro Piquet ahead of him and Ralph Ferron in the number 7 car just behind.
In Jake Hughes, he's actually really fended off. Piquet is now concentrating very much on the challenge of Newey behind him. It's actually giving Jake Hughes some space. And as we come down into the latter few moments, and it is...
Oh, it's game over for Callum Eilert. And, well, he was running right at the back of the pack. He's getting himself out of the car, and that's race over for Callum Eilert. So highs and lows of motor racing. Just 1 race ago, he was right on the top step of the podium. Here is for the race leader, Lando Norris, then.
And the problem for Eilert is that's with only 9 races,
points.
With 9 races left in the championship, that puts him nearly 100 or 70, like several victories behind Callum Eilert, behind Lando Norris. It's going to be difficult at this stage with only 9 races still to go.
And that is the problem when you get to the closing stages of any championship, of course, and it's where the points gained earlier on in the year may come back to really, really help you. Right, as the cars head now, and once again, stoic defence there from the Ralph Ferron car, who has Joey Mawson trying to drive all the way around the outside, and we know, or Nikita Mazepin knows, that from lap after lap after lap of trying to do that, it's not an easy one to do.
It'll be I wonder if actually be a slightly different situation with Mawson having to go on Aaron as opposed to Mazepin having to go on Aaron. It's the 2 high-tech cars. They don't want to be in a position where they take each other out, whereas Mawson in the Van Amersfoort car is probably going to be less concerned. All he wants the position.
Yeah.
He maybe be a little bit more aggressive, where Mazepin will be more inclined to hold off as opposed to being involved in an incident. And Mazepin and Aaron did connect several times,
yes,
but not enough to actually do any kind of lasting damage.
Well, the clock is ticking away. We have the time remaining on the top of the screen plus 1 lap. So Joel Eriksson now on Mick Schumacher. We can see Mick Schumacher is P11, Joel Eriksson is P12. So neither Schumacher nor Eriksson are in the points. Jake Hughes has been untroubled relatively by Pedro Piquet, apart from that 1 attempt from Pedro Piquet around the outside of the Tarzan turn number 1, which he wasn't able to make work. There is Mick Schumacher, Prema Power Team. The order is Norris, Habsburg, Gunter, Guan Yu Zhu,
And Ericsson does seem to be taking a rather narrower line coming into the entry in that final corner, as we see. Mazepin on Mawson is the high-tech racer on the Van Amersfoort guy. This time Mawson's on the inside defending as opposed to attacking. And holds the high-tech racer at bay. Just to mention, Ericsson has a strange line coming in on the entrance into Ari Lindike corner, because he seems to take a narrower line. It just seems to almost affect his traction and acceleration coming through that section, and that's what drops him behind Schumacher as they actually go through the last corner onto the start from the straight.
Fair point.
Anyway,
Ferdinand Habsburg out on his own in P2. Here's
and looking like another podium for a guy who's actually really made a step up in the last couple of rounds.
Absolutely. Maximilian Gunter in the same position, of course. He's out on his own in P3. But this man out on his own up front, some 6 seconds up the road, is Lando Norris, who really has looked completely untroubled. And so he crosses the line, and Lando Norris then set on, barring any disaster, for another victory. And another very, very valuable points haul. And the rest of the pack beyond the Guan Yu Zhou car, which is being led by Jake Hughes, we're into the final 2 laps. Joel Eriksson still trying very, very hard. There's Nikita Mazepin in the number 99 machine. And there you can see Jake Hughes has led this train for ages and ages and ages. And Harry Newey getting just a little bit closer to PK. And here comes Nikita Mazepin on Joey Mawson again, but there's nothing doing, is there? He's just not able to make that outside line stick around the Tarzan turn.
And, you know, this is for 9th and 10th places. And, of course, Mawson just not just fighting for 9th overall. He is second in the rookie standings in this race as well. Norris also leading the race and leading the rookie standings. Mick Schumacher, who's third in the rookie standings, is 11th overall. And Mawson just seems to be doing just enough to hold Mazepin at bay. The gap is only a couple of tenths of a second, but it's just enough as Mazepin goes on the inside line of turn 1 to just hold Mazepin back. And Mazepin had laps of this, trying to go around the outside of Ralph Aron earlier on, and it just couldn't come off. As we see Jake Hughes, there's 5th place, then it's PK, then it's Newey, then it's Aron, then it's Mawson, then it's Mazepin, then it's Schumacher, all close together. Schumacher dropped back a bit from Mazepin on the final lap, maybe, or the last lap, just to give him a little bit of room, but he's actually put in a personal best in sector 1, and then he's going to make one final effort on Nikita Mazepin to try and get into the points, as we see race leader Lando Norris now on the final lap of the race.
Yes, it's been another masterclass from Lando Norris then, who has driven exceptionally and has looked completely and totally untroubled. So his margin is some 5.5 seconds over Ferdinand Habsburg in P2. Maximilian Gunter is P3, and they really have opened up such a gap over the rest of the field. And Lando Norris then is very cool, calm and collected, and a long, long way ahead of Ferdinand Habsburg, and therefore is untroubled, and he's run to the checkered flag then for yet another win for Lando Norris. Is just a few turns away as he makes his way very, very steadily and safely and speedily through the Audi S. And he has merely one turn to do before he'll put another win into the success book of Lando Norris then, as he heads towards the checkered flag. Lando Norris is going to take the win for race number 3 here at the Zandvoort circuit in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Lando Norris wins ahead of, here comes Ferdinand Habsburg to take P2. Some 6.6 seconds behind our race leader, and there is Maximilian Gunter, P3, and it's some time before we see Guan Yu Zhou, and you could make yourself a sandwich, I think, before you will see the rest of the pack come through, which is led by Jake Hughes here. Such has been the pace of the top 4. Here comes Jake Hughes then, who will take P5, and they're all in one straight line as it's Hughes, PK, Newey, Aron, and then we see Mawson and Mazepin rounding out the top 10. Then it is Schumacher, Ericsson, Beckman, Daruvala, Andres, Makino, and then Sato.
7th win of the season for Lando Norris. He's scored this weekend on his own. He scored 65 points, whereas Joel Eriksson, with his second place in yesterday's race 1, has only scored 18. Maxi Gunther, who got 3rd today and 3rd in race 1, so that's only 30 points for him collected this weekend. So Lando Norris has effectively more than double scored Gunther this year, and triple or almost 3.5 times the results of Joel Eriksson this weekend. He's in the championship lead, and when you have weekends like this, that is what bolsters a championship challenge.
No question about it. Confirmation of the result then on screen for you. Lando Norris taking the win from Ferdinand Habsburg, Maximilian Gunther, Guan Yu Zhu. Then it was Jake Hughes, Pedro Piquet, Harrison Newey, Ralph Aron, Joey Mawson and Nikita Mazepin rounding out the top 10. The rest of the order then: Mick Schumacher, Joel Eriksson, David Beckman, Jihan Daruvala, Kevin Andres, Tadazuke Makino, Marina Sato, Amaya Vadyathan, and then Callum Eilert. We saw, unfortunately, in the pit lane, a DNF for Callum Eilert. So we await the cars making their way back, and there's been quite a bit of pickup there, hasn't there, from Lando Norris? Yeah, making sure that he waves to the fans as he makes his way back to...
One of the things actually with the slowdown laps at a place like Zandvoort is the idea being you go offline, maybe into a runoff area, pick up some dirt on your tyres, and then make sure that it brings the weight of the car up to ensure that your car is legal. It's very difficult actually to do properly at Zandvoort because there's no bog standard tarmac runoff areas that just have bits of tyre rubber and stuff like that. The only runoff areas are the grass and the gravel, and you don't want to get stuck in there.
You're absolutely right.
So you actually have to resort to picking up as much rubble as you can offline. So just drive to the edge of the circuit away from the racing line, and that's going to where you get your rubble. And it's
well, Lando Norris then is into Parc Fermé, parked ahead of P1. A fine result for Lando Norris then. P2 is Ferdinand Habsburg, and Maximilian Gunther will take a P3. Lando Norris then makes his way out of the car and celebrates his success. Of course, it's double bubble once again for Lando Norris, because not only is he the race winner, he is the best rookie as well. The rookie podium will contain Lando Norris, Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher. The top 3 in the rookies.
Which is also the podium for the rookie podium for race 2 earlier on today as well.
Ferdinand Habsburg, you know what? You said earlier on, he's looked pretty impressive over the second half of this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's taken a win at Spa. He's had...
We mustn't forget his podium, of course, in race 1 at Monza. Did he take P3?
Yes, he did. He was P3 in race 1 at Monza, and he's also scored top 4, a couple of 6ths. So earlier on in the season, the first half of the season, he was either non-scoring or maybe getting minimal points, and now he's actually in a position where he's getting the podiums here and there, or he's getting decent, say, top 6 finishes or something like that. So he's actually bagging some very, very good, impressive points now that we're getting into the second half of the season, as we see Lando Norris taking the flag and taking the victory, another race victory here at Zandvoort, his second win of the season, win of the weekend, his 7th of the season. And the kind of form he's on at the moment, Dave, and he's really been on it for the last couple of rounds. This is championship winning form.
No question about it. No question about it. Is a very, very impressive performance indeed from Lando Norris. And we can see him once again celebrating atop the car. A great job from Lando Norris, who, of course, just... few days ago was testing in a Formula 1 car, and well, there is a name you're going to hear a lot about in motorsport, I think, Lando Norris. And the FIA Formula 3 European Championship has delivered so many racing stars. And in the Drivers' Championship, look at this, 313 points for Lando Norris, Maximilian Gunther on 302, and then 258 for Joel Eriksson. Callum Eilert, 221.
Nearly 100 points behind.
Yeah.
I think that might well be it for Callum, unfortunately. You know what? I don't think Gunther will be he'll be disappointed to have not made any more ground from 3rd on the grid, but I think there's a little bit of damage limitation to a small degree as well, and he scored some very, very healthy points. He's still there in the championship. It's only 12 points. So Gunther is still very, very much in it, as we see the slow-mos of the podium finishers in this race. Maxi Gunther 11.5 seconds behind eventual race winner in the BWT Prima Power Team car powered by Mercedes.
So Maximilian Gunter then, who finishes this race P3. Ferdinand Habsburg, P2 for Carlin Motorsport. Of course, double bubble for Carlin Motorsport, taking P1 and P2 because the race winner, another absolutely commanding performance from a young star in the making, Lando Norris.
So I think to a degree, with only 9 races left, we are closing down into maybe a duel for the championship. Ericsson's still there, just.
But it will need some. What it needs now, and this is the problem, isn't it? When you start relying on others having really bad weekends.
We were talking about this earlier on after race 2. When Callum actually won race 2, we'd theorised as well it would require bad weekends for Norris and Gunther maybe to really bring him into it. Well, Callum's unfortunately not finished today. He retired from 5th place. Well, he pitted from 5th place earlier on, as we see Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher discussing their races there. But unless I think Ericsson's in a position now, he needs bad weekends for Gunther and Norris to bring him back into this championship while he himself actually wins. And it must be noted, Joel Ericsson's not won since race 3 at Hungary, and that was over 2 months ago in June. Gunther himself hasn't won since race 1 at Norris Ring, so it's actually a long time since those two guys have taken a race win. They need to get back on that top step soon to reaffirm their place in this championship.
Yeah, and when you start relying on others having torrid times, it's not in your own gift, is it, to make it happen? It's not in your own gift. Well, we'll be seeing Norris Habsburg and Maximilian Gunter on the podium in just a few moments' time. As you can see, Schumacher being interviewed down there. And he makes his way, beg your pardon, that was Maximilian Gunter.
And good result there for Guan Yu, actually. P4. Had a bit of a challenge with Maxi Gunter at one stage in the race, but was never close to being challenged by Jay Hughes. So a good haul of points for the Chinese driver.
Lando Norris then, once again, makes his way to P1 on the top step of the podium.
He stretches his back. It's a little thing he does sometimes. He told me earlier on the season he sometimes gets a little bit uncomfortable in the car, and when he gets out, he has to do those kind of back stretches to make sure he's not in too much pain later on. Ferdinand
Habsburg looks very happy. He's a tall guy, isn't he, in comparison to Lando Norris? And there is Maximilian Gunter. Carlin Motorsport, the team represented on the podium as well. It's been a very good weekend for Carlin.
And Stefan on the podium receiving the trophy for Callum. I believe was one of the head engineers at Carlin. And now the British national anthem for Lando Norris.
So Lando Norris on the top step of the podium, Ferdinand Habsburg on P2, and Maximilian Gunter on P3.
And a trio of British winners
once again
this weekend. As of course Norris with 2 wins and Eilert with 2. Eilert with 1. That's Manfred Sandbichler from Hankook, who gives the trophy to Lando Norris.
Eric Weijers, the Chief Operating Officer here at Circuit Park Zandvoort. And yeah, it's been a good weekend for Britain here in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Ferdinand Habsburg. Manfred gets out of the way very quickly. Oh, no! That wasn't in the script at all. That's it. I'm just going to take a swig of that, if you don't mind. So then, yeah, British winners all the way through the 3 races, but all nationalities are represented up there on the podium. So that was a great podium celebration. Actually marked by the clumsiness of Ferdinand Habsburg as he woofed the Henkel Trocken off the podium.
He wasn't clumsy on track today, was he?
No, he wasn't. Look at that. Maximilian Good has just got it sussed here, hasn't he?
At least he sprayed enough enough bubbly on the podium in the last couple of years.
Yes.
And Lando Norris finally. And of course, this is the last race.
No more. Stefan says, I've had enough. Callum says, forget it, chap, you're getting the bottle.
This is the last race.
He's not giving up, is he? Here comes the fight back. Oh, fantastic.
And of course, this is the last race of this weekend as well, so they're not worried about the state of the race. Race suits or clothes anymore.
I hope Stefan's got another shirt to put on. Oh, brilliant stuff. Absolutely wonderful celebrations up there on the podium. That was all, in my opinion, that was all started really by Ferdinand Habsburg. He just put everyone in a really, really good temper, didn't he? Of course, they're all in a good temper because it's P1, P2 and P3.
Of course, Norris is going to get in a second.
And, of course, we've got the rookie podium to come as well, which, thankfully, we're going to be able to bring you that as well. So we'll see Lando Norris once again, and we'll also see Joey Mawson and Mick Schumacher up there. And we're just waiting for Marvin perhaps to come out with a mop. Or bilge pump, perhaps.
Marvin, of course, the kind of coordinator.
Yeah, great guy. Good fun.
But okay, good drives too there by Mawson. He made a good move for 9th place. Mazepin during the race after Mazepin couldn't get by Ralph Arendt.
Oh look, who is it? Top step of the podium.
It looks a bit damp, really.
El Norris again. Yes.
Second place goes to Joey Mawson.
Yes, here comes Joey Mawson then. Joey's a great guy. Wrong way, Joey. That's it. And here comes Mick Schumacher then.
And for our British winner, we again are going to listen to the British national anthem.
The anthem plays out one more time for Lando Norris then. On the top step of the podium, Joey Mawson, P2. Manfred Sandbichler from Hankook Tyres then. He hands yet another trophy to Lando Norris. Joey Mawson receives his. And Mick Schumacher then receives his trophy. Well, on a circuit which is quite difficult to overtake, I have to say the entertainment value from the FIA Formula 3 European Championship as we watch the rookie podium has been really rather good, and all eyes set on the next round of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship as we will be heading off to the Nürburgring. Before then it is the Red Bull Ring and the glittering finale mid-October to come in Hockenheim, where every single point that has been gained in the campaign so far will really, really count. And we will see the FIA Formula 3 European Champion for 2017 crowned. Joey Mawson gets plenty there from Mick Schumacher, and Lando Norris does as well. And the rookie podium done and dusted. Stand by. We're going to bring you the highlights of that race 3 as Joey Mawson makes sure that the team can celebrate as well. Well caught there, Van Amersfoort Racing, as we look at the circuit park at Zandvoort then from our helicopter shot. What a fantastic place this is. The highlights. Bye-bye for now.